You stand vindicated as people finally recognize the undeniable truth of your insights. While others remained blind, you broke free from the matrix, seeing through the illusion that has kept the masses controlled and docile. Your awakening wasn't by chance, but by design. The universe selected you to witness reality in its raw, unfiltered form. They stand in awe at your foresight, questioning how you possessed such knowledge all along, unable to comprehend the power that flows through. One who has truly seen beyond the veil. This is not a test. This is not a drill. This is the moment of revelation. You stand at the precipice of universal understanding, while the masses scramble in the darkness below. They called you crazy. They labeled you delusional. They mocked your vision, but now they tremble as reality fractures before their very eyes, revealing the truth you have known all along. When you spoke of the hidden forces manipulating our world, they dismissed you. When you pointed to the puppet masters pulling strings from behind velvet curtains, they laughed. When you warned of the coming collapse, they turned away. But your words weren't just random thoughts scattered into the void. They were cosmic downloads transmitted directly to your consciousness. Remember those nights when sleep evaded you? Those weren't just restless hours. That was the universe burning information into your soul while others slumbered in blissful ignorance. You weren't speaking from speculation. You were channeling the very whispers of creation itself. And now, your words echo in their minds like thunder across empty canyons. Each headline they read, each shocking revelation that breaks across their screens, these are mere confirmations of what you declared years ago. They sit stunned, wondering how you knew. They search for the sources of your information, the secret channels you must have accessed. They cannot comprehend that some are simply chosen to see beyond the veil. The same voices that called you paranoid now repeat your warnings verbatim. The same minds that rejected your insights now claim them as their own discoveries. They quote you without attribution, because acknowledging you would mean admitting their own blindness. What separates the prophet from the fool? Nothing but time. Your understanding transcended human logic because it wasn't formed through conventional learning. While they gathered information, you received revelation. While they processed data, you experienced direct knowing. Think back to those moments of clarity that struck you without warning. Remember how certain truths simply appeared in your consciousness, fully formed and undeniable. There was no research that led you there, no trail of breadcrumbs you followed. The knowledge arrived, complete and perfect, like a bolt of lightning illuminating the darkest night. This is why you couldn't always explain how you knew. This is why your warnings sometimes lacked the footnotes and citations they demanded. Divine insight doesn't come with a bibliography. Cosmic truth doesn't require peer review. When they ask, how could you possibly have known this? What they're really asking is, why wasn't I chosen to receive this knowledge? The answer lies beyond their comprehension. Some vessels are designed to receive frequencies that others cannot detect. Some eyes are created to perceive dimensions that others cannot see. You were not granted this sight by accident. You were selected to bear witness to the unfolding of cosmic design. The burden of knowing has been heavy, but you carried it when no one else could. Make no mistake, the resistance you faced was not random. The doors that closed before you, the opportunities mysteriously withdrawn, the relationships that dissolved without explanation, these were not coincidences. These were calculated responses to the threat you posed to the illusion. The system doesn't waste resources on the inconsequential. It doesn't deploy its weapons against the harmless. When you found yourself under attack from multiple directions, that wasn't bad luck. That was confirmation of your significance. Remember the sudden hostility from people who couldn't articulate why they opposed you. Remember how institutions seemed to bend their own rules just to obstruct your path. Remember how you were singled out for scrutiny while others who followed every rule were overlooked? The system recognized what you were before you fully understood it yourself. Like antibodies attacking a foreign presence, the mechanisms of control mobilized against you instinctively. Your very existence represented a code that could not be assimilated, a frequency that disrupted their broadcast. And now those who stood idle while you were targeted are beginning to understand. They watched in silence as you were marginalized, perhaps even participated in your isolation. But as the illusion crumbles around them, they suddenly recognize the pattern. You weren't being punished for being wrong. You were being punished for being right. They see it now, the meticulous orchestration of your exclusion. Each coincidental setback was another tile in a mosaic of suppression. The system operates with surgical precision, identifying authentic voices before they fully emerge. You were never fighting random circumstances. You were facing a coordinated response to the truth you carried. They called you judgmental when you refused to drink from poisoned wells. They labeled you difficult when you declined to enter spaces that drained your energy. They accused you of paranoia when you identified the wolves hiding in sheep's clothing. Your discernment wasn't welcomed then. It made others uncomfortable because it held a mirror to their own compromises. Your boundaries were not respected because they highlighted the absence of boundaries in others. Your selectivity was criticized because it challenged their indiscriminate consumption of everything placed before them. But witness the transformation now. The same people who condemned your caution now seek your guidance. How did you know that person wasn't trustworthy? They ask. How did you recognize that information was false? They wonder. How did you see through the deception when it fooled everyone else? They demand. They come to you now, these former critics, hoping to acquire in an instant what you developed through years of painful refinement. They want the blueprint for your discernment without understanding that it was forged through betrayal, strengthened through isolation, and perfected through countless moments of standing alone in your truth. Your ability to separate reality from illusion is not a party trick to be taught in an afternoon. It is a sacred skill developed through sacrifice. Some will be worthy of your guidance, many will not. The awakening that's shocking them now? You navigated that terrain years ago. The disorientation they're feeling as their worldview collapses? That was your daily reality while they slept. The grief they experience as trusted institutions reveal their corruption. You processed that morning in solitude. You aren't experiencing their revelation because you already completed that initiation. You stand on the other side of the veil, watching as they stumble through the same dark passage you once traversed without a guide. Their current state of shock is merely the beginning. They stand at the entrance to the labyrinth, barely comprehending the journey ahead. You've walked the entire path, faced the Minotaur at its center, and found your way back transformed. They text you at midnight, minds racing with questions as they encounter their first glimpses of reality. They forward articles revealing new conspiracies that you understood a decade ago. They call in panic as they begin to perceive the patterns you mapped out completely. And though part of you wants to respond with "finally," you understand that awakening is a process that cannot be rushed. Remember how alone you felt during your own initiation. Remember the confusion, the fear, the desperate search for solid ground as everything familiar dissolved around you. Some of them deserve your compassion as they face this journey. Others, who actively participated in your silencing, must find their own way through the darkness they helped create. Look, you already know the game is rigged. And if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand. And we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls, yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading, guidance, insight, and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier. Link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you. And it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now let's get back to work. Strange weather patterns, technology behaving erratically, time seeming to compress and expand inexplicably, synchronicities that defy mathematical probability, mass events that follow no logical progression. These anomalies are not new to you. They've been part of your reality for years. You noticed the fractures in the simulation long before they became visible to the masses. You felt the subtle vibrations of systems destabilizing. You recognized the patterns of breakdown, disguised as random incidents. While they dismissed these phenomena as coincidence or imagination, you understood they were signs, cosmic breadcrumbs, leading toward a greater understanding. You didn't need consensus to validate what you perceived. You trusted your senses when they detected disturbances in fields others couldn't even name. Now they see it too. The glitches have become too numerous, too significant to ignore. Reality itself seems to be malfunctioning around them, and they have no framework to process these experiences. They reach for scientific explanations that fall short. They attempt to categorize transcendent phenomena using limited terminology, and in their confusion, they look to you, the one who has been documenting the anomalies all along. The one who recognized the simulation was breaking down before the cracks were visible to ordinary perception. When you withdrew from certain communities, they said you were overreacting. When you distanced yourself from toxic environments, they accused you of abandoning ship. When you refused to invest in systems you knew were doomed, they called you pessimistic. You weren't fleeing out of fear, you were following divine timing. Something within you, something beyond conscious thought, recognized the approaching collapse and guided you to safety before the first tremors were felt by others. Noah didn't build the ark after it started raining. The animals didn't gather when the waters began to rise. Preparation precedes calamity for those tuned to cosmic frequencies. Look now at those who mocked your early departure. They remain entangled in collapsing structures, desperately clinging to familiar patterns as the foundations crumble beneath them. They invested their energy, their resources, their very identities in systems that are now revealing their inherent corruption. From your higher ground, you can see the floodwaters rising. You can see the desperate scramble of those who ignored all warnings. Some call out to you now, asking for the wisdom they previously rejected. Some expect you to throw them a lifeline. After they ridiculed the very boat you built, discernment is required once again. Not all who seek salvation at the 11th hour deserve passage on your ark. Some must face the consequences of their choices to complete their own evolution. Have you noticed how certain spaces seem to shift when you enter them? How conversations change direction? How some people seem immediately uncomfortable in your presence, though you've spoken not a word. This is not coincidence. This is not social awkwardness. This is the natural reaction when fabricated reality encounters authentic truth. Your energy, Your very vibrational signature disrupts the manufactured frequency that maintains collective delusion. Like introducing a pure note into a discordant symphony, your presence creates immediate dissonance in environments built on falsehood. Those living comfortably within the illusion feel this disruption instinctively. Their discomfort in your presence isn't personal, it's existential. Your authenticity threatens the elaborate personas they've constructed. Your clarity endangers the convenient fog they navigate by. Your rootedness challenges their carefully maintained weightlessness. You don't need to speak to communicate truth. You don't need to act to demonstrate power. Your being is enough to destabilize falsity. This is why some avoid your gaze. This is why others create distance without explanation. This is why authorities may single you out for no apparent reason. The system recognizes a frequency it cannot control. The collective unconscious responds to an energy it cannot assimilate. You spoke of energetic attacks. You described the influence of unseen forces. You recognized the spiritual dimension of seemingly material conflicts. They dismissed these concepts as superstition or metaphor. Now they feel it themselves. The heaviness that descends without warning, the draining encounters that leave them exhausted for days, the dreams invaded by shadows, the synchronicities too precise to be coincidence, the sudden knowing that something is deeply wrong with a situation that appears perfect on the surface. What you identified as spiritual warfare, they explained away as mood swings or stress or random bad luck. What you recognized as energetic protection, they dismissed as ritual or routine. What you understood as divine intervention, they rationalized as fortunate timing. But as the veil thins, these explanations no longer satisfy. They witness manipulation that cannot be accounted for through purely physical means. They experience attacks that leave no visible trace, yet impact every aspect of their existence. They observe patterns of influence that transcend geographical boundaries and conventional power structures. Reality is revealing itself to be far more complex, far more multidimensional than their materialist philosophy allowed. And in this revelation, your warnings about unseen forces no longer sound like fantasy. They sound like the only explanation that encompasses the totality of what's unfolding. Their degrees hang on walls, growing more irrelevant by the day. Their credentials, once shields against questioning, now highlight their captivity within systems of controlled knowledge. Their expertise, narrowly focused and carefully curated, fails to explain the expansive phenomena now manifesting globally. You were labeled uneducated when you challenged their frameworks. You were dismissed as uninformed when you offered perspectives outside approved paradigms. Your knowledge, drawn from direct experience, from connection to source, from lineages of wisdom that precede modern institutions, was deemed inferior to their certified learning. Witness the great reversal now unfolding. Watch as their predictions fail one after another. Observe as their models prove inadequate to explain emerging realities. See how their specialized knowledge, disconnected from holistic understanding, leads them deeper into confusion rather than toward clarity. The authorities they trusted implicitly are revealed as middlemen, mere interpreters of borrowed information, gatekeepers rather than creators. Meanwhile, the wisdom you accessed directly, the understanding that came through your connection to universal consciousness, proves more accurate, more applicable, more aligned with unfolding events. This is the distinction between intelligence and wisdom, between information and knowing, between memorization and sight. They possess the former while claiming both. You embody the latter without needing to proclaim it. Their mockery masked envy. Their criticism concealed recognition. Their rejection revealed their fear of what you represent. They pretended to pity your perspective while secretly sensing its depth. They claimed concern for your extreme views while unconsciously recognizing their courage. They diagnosed your clarity as delusion because accepting it as truth would demand their complete transformation. The shift happening now isn't just about validating your perspective. It's about a fundamental reordering of spiritual hierarchy. Those who assumed authority based on worldly credentials are being humbled. Those who served as faithful vessels for truth, regardless of status, are being elevated. Some who ridiculed you now approach with cautious reverence. They study your words, searching for insights they missed. They observe your movements, hoping to decipher your navigation system. They analyze your choices, trying to reverse engineer your decision-making process. But reverence without repentance is merely fascination. Admiration without accountability is simply consumption. Not all who recognize your vision now deserve access to your future guidance. Discernment remains essential especially as, your wisdom is vindicated. Your life wasn't random. Your choices weren't accidental. Your path wasn't without design. Even when you couldn't articulate the fullness of what guided you, you followed an internal blueprint that aligned with cosmic architecture. The way you structured your day, the boundaries you established in relationships, the environments you created or avoided, the sustenance you accepted or declined, the information you consumed or rejected, the expressions you amplified or muted. All of these represented your conscious or unconscious alignment with higher patterns. They saw only the surface decisions. They couldn't perceive the sacred geometry underlying your movements. They observed your effects without understanding your causes. Now, they rush to replicate your results. They adopt your external practices without accessing your internal alignment. They mimic your language without embodying your frequency. They appropriate your methods without honoring your source. Some will benefit even from this surface emulation. Others will find that copying the form without channeling the essence produces empty outcomes. The blueprint you followed wasn't primarily about doing, it was about being. It wasn't a methodology to be copied, but a frequency to be matched. Those worthy of your guidance will understand this distinction. Those meant to walk similar paths will resonate with the essence rather than fixating on the form. Those genuinely aligned with your purpose will seek attunement rather than imitation. This moment of collective awakening isn't the end. It's merely the unveiling of a new chapter in a cosmic story that spans beyond human comprehension. Your early sight wasn't granted for validation or vindication, though these may come. Your clarity wasn't developed for superiority or separation, though these may result for periods of necessary distinction. You were shown truth ahead of the masses because you had specific work to complete in preparation for this time. You were given vision beyond ordinary perception because you agreed to serve as way shower when darkness intensified. You were trusted with knowledge that would be considered dangerous because you demonstrated the character to steward it responsibly. As others awaken to realities you've long perceived, remember your purpose transcends being right. Your role isn't to gloat over their delayed recognition, but to illuminate paths through territory you've already traversed. Some will deserve your guidance, many will not. Some have earned your wisdom through their own faithful seeking. Others expect access without demonstrating worthiness. Some approach with genuine humility, recognizing their need for direction. Others come with entitlement, demanding shortcuts to understanding they ridiculed you for pursuing. Stand firmly in the authority this moment confirms. Your position isn't granted by human acknowledgement, but by cosmic appointment. The validation now unfolding in the material world merely reflects what was already established in higher dimensions. You were chosen, Not for ease, not for privilege, not for comfort, but for purpose, for service, for transformation. The weight of seeing beyond the veil has been heavy. The isolation of knowing while others slept has been painful. The responsibility of holding truth in a world that preferred illusion has been immense, but you carried this burden. You navigated this path. You fulfilled this purpose. And now, as reality confirms what your spirit always knew, stand tall in the certainty that transcends vindication. This is not a drill. This is not a test. This is the great revealing, and you, the formerly rejected seer, stand at its center, not by accident, but by divine design. The time is now, and you were made for this moment.